Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. Now, I met Amber Renae through a podcast match. Now, to be funny, I typically don't take people on my show from that. But we started talking. There's been like one or two other people that have actually let come on my show just from reaching out, just because I'm really picky. But I look at some of the stuff you do, the people you help, and all. So I was like, no, I have to have you on the show. But Amber, for people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I feel honored to have made the cut. I'm hoping to really drop some nuggets of wisdom on your audience. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that. What I do is I help people go from idea phase to online business phase. And there's a few different ways that I help people in that. But my big mantra and big purpose in life is that I really believe that we all want a life of living a life of true freedom and true autonomy, which is my biggest values in life. And so I'm very passionate about helping people find that within their own business.
No, I love that. I talk to people a lot of times about waking up to a life they want to live. Same concept, just a different wording with it. How did you even get started with doing that? Have you always been an entrepreneur since you were little, or did you just fall into it, or just decide one day I want to? How did that happen?
This is no one's asked this question, but I actually started my first business in year 6, so grade 6 at school. And I used to make shirts on my sewing machine, and I would sell these like really cool little crop tees that would actually be in fashion now, Joseph. They'd be cool now. And I made them for all my friends, and I sold them for like $5. And so I was a hustler from way back. One of the other businesses that I ran at school, you used to be able to write off to the surf companies, like Quicksilver and Billabong, and they would send you stickers. And this was back in the day where we used to put stickers on our school books, and I would
Yep.
get the stickers for free, and then I would sell them for like 50 cents to my friends. So I was like a hustler way back in the school days. So I guess when I tell you my entrepreneurial journey, it's all going to add up from those early experiences. But I actually graduated with a civil engineering degree, and I used to work on a construction site building roads and bridges. But I left that job. Well, actually, I got fired from that job, which is a bit of a history of mine. I'm not a very good employee. And I started my very first business, which was a fashion label. So that started with me making 4 shirts, men's shirts, actually. I made menswear back in the day. We sold 4 men's shirts. The next week, we sold 8 men's shirts. And 5 years later, I had 120 accounts around the world. We exported to Paris, Tokyo, LA, and South Africa, and dressed some of the biggest celebrities in the day, which back in the day was Paris Hilton. By then, we were doing women's wear as well as menswear. And this was kind of before social media. So we were doing influencer marketing before it was even a thing with the OG influencer. And I thought I would have that business for the rest of my life. It was all I ever wanted to do. But sadly, that's not how it ended up. The universe had bigger plans for me. My manufacturer went out of business, which caused me to go out of business because we pre-purchased everything in that business model. And I was bankrupt. I had worked myself basically to death. I had a nervous breakdown on the side of a highway, had to get taken to hospital, found out that I had stomach ulcers, cancer. I was on anti-anxiety, antidepressant tablets, and swore that I would never start another business ever again. And about a year later, I went back to a job. I lasted about a year as an employee before getting fired again. And then I started my second business, which was a fashion consulting business. So this was working one-on-one. So I think probably a lot of your audience are probably in a similar business model where you are consulting, you show up, you do one job, you get paid for that one job, and then you have to hustle the next job to get your next, your next paying client. So I was a fashion stylist. And a couple of years into that business, I got a couple of the best contracts in the country. So I was the fashion editor for a national glossy publication and the resident stylist at our biggest radio and TV network. And I was the fashion reporter for fashion TV. So again, I thought I was living my best fashionista life. I was sitting front row at fashion weeks, interviewing celebrities. But there was always something in the back of my mind that I thought, this business model is faulty, because it didn't matter how good I was as a fashion stylist. Fashion stylists got paid a particular hourly rate. That was it. Didn't matter if you were the best or the worst, you got paid a fashion stylist rate. And also, if I wanted to earn more money, I had to work more hours, and you can only work a certain amount of hours before you end up burnt out in hospital. So again, I thought, this business model, like, it's fun, I'm having the greatest time, but there's something faulty about this model. Thankfully, the universe eventually stepped in again and pushed me out of that one. And I lost all of my contracts in the space of a month. Again, I was unemployed and unemployable. I could not get a job in a bar. I tried to go back to the construction site. No one would give me work. Spent about
Mhm.
6 months just going, what am I going to do with my life? And thankfully, my brother at the time said, you need to start an online course. And this was back in 2015. No one knew what online courses were. I used
Right.
to have to
Yep.
explain to people, you're going to log in on your phone and watch some videos. And I launched my very first course, which was how to be a celebrity fashion stylist. I launched that in 2015. It made 6 figures in the first year, and it made 6 figures every year since then on autopilot, just people showing up. It's one of the best fashion styling courses in the world. So then I realized, hang on, this is a smart business model. I can
Hmm.
really get
Yep.
behind this. I really believe in this. So then I started monetizing all of my other passions. So I'm sure your audience is multi-passionate with many skills that they could monetize. So my next passion was personal branding and publicity. It's what I was doing with the fashion styling. I taught a course around that. My next program was in mindset. Obviously, I've overcome quite a lot of things to get here
Hmm.
today. I've developed a lot of mindset techniques. So I taught a course around that. And then I realized I was really good at teaching courses. So I taught a course about the courses. So now I have a
Yep.
course
Yep.
called Freedom Funnels that teaches that. I wrote the book on online business during COVID when I realized people really needed something to get them started in the whole online business space. And now we have a done for you course creation agency where we help time poor experts to create online courses. So that's my evolution. If you're hearing this, it's
Hmm.
not like what we see on Instagram. There's no hashtag entrepreneur life. I woke up one day and it all worked out well for me. It's been quite a bit of a journey, but I do really feel like I've been lovingly pushed into all of these avenues so that I'm best utilizing all of the skills that I've been given.
Yeah. Well, and I was listening to it because I see in patterns and I hear patterns. That's just kind of something I do. And it was like, you did the thing when you're a kid. You start the business. You think this is going to be it. It falls out. Then you start another business. Then you deal with like cancer and overcoming things, which is crazy big. Then you tried to do something that you didn't work because you can't fit a square hole in a peg. Like that doesn't work. It just doesn't matter. You can't. You are unemployable. That's fine. You're an entrepreneur. You're supposed to be doing what you're doing. But I want to start here. You literally told me I had a nervous breakdown. I had cancer. I was losing my mind, for lack of better terms. And no shame. We've all been there. Like in my sales career, in my business life, there's been times you hit rock bottom. How did you come out of that? Because that's a big pivotal moment in your life. Because a lot of people would have folded. A lot of people would have went back to just doing a job and never come back. And now you're teaching courses and doing things around the world. That's crazy epic. So how did you get past that point?
I'm not saying it was an easy journey. I was incredibly depressed, very unwell for at least a 12-month period. Thankfully, I got a job that was a really great job with a really supportive group of people. So, whilst I loved going to work, internally, I was dealing with not only the loss of my business and the health stuff, but I had a huge identity wrapped up in that business. I used to
Mhm.
call it my baby, which is
Yep.
so traumatic because then when it failed, I felt like I'd lost a baby. So, when I hear people going, this is my business, it's my baby, I think, oh, tricky identity to be wrapping those two things together. So there was some deep psychological work that I had to unpack. And really, it was just a time, just a long period of time. And I guess the thing that eventually pushed me out of the job, because I was working during that period in my job, I was so unfulfilled. So
Mhm.
although the first business didn't end well, I was incredibly fulfilled. I love
Mhm.
that business. I loved waking up every single day. I worked 7 days a week for 5 years. I loved every minute. But in this business, despite it being well paid, easy, I got paid whether I worked or not, which was wild to me. You could just show up each
Mhm.
week and someone would pay you. It was a crazy
Yeah.
experience, but it was so unfulfilling. And I remember I used to look at my dad. So my dad graduated from uni and he got a job like the week that he graduated, and he retired from that company and that role 50 years
Mhm.
later. He hated every day of his life,
No. Yeah. Yeah.
never enjoyed a single day, but he did it because he had 4 children to feed, right? So
Hmm.
I think that in hindsight, the blessing of that man is like, oh my gosh, thank God I didn't end up like that. And that was my fear at the time. Like I was looking at this job going, this is a great job for you. They're paying you really well. You're okay at it. You're completely unfulfilled, but you could probably stick with it for the next 30 years. And then it was just like, wow, what if you're going to do that? And then you might end up like your dad.
When I think that's the entrepreneurial journey, because like I'm a super expert in sales. Like if I wanted just to make more money, I could just go do sales. Like I won multiple awards. Like I'm really good at sales for Fortune 50 companies. Not, it's what I'm good at. But I love seeing people get the wake up moments, the light bulb, seeing them go from taking their fuzzy dreams and making it into reality. I like taking their chaos and making it into order. And that lights me up because you can only buy so many things. You can only go on so many trips. You can only do so much stuff. Like my wife and I went to Hawaii. We've gone 4 or 5 times. I've taken the kids to Disney. We've done this stuff that people are like, oh, this fulfills you. It's cool, but it doesn't fulfill you. Impact fulfills me. So I think that no
Really?
matter what, you wanted to have a life on your terms. It's not the money, it's the impact. And don't hear, I'm not saying money's good. I like making money, but I want to be able to, like, if you decide today you wanted to just chill, you could because you own the business. Or if you want to work 12, 14 hours, no one's telling you. But here's the flip side. And I want to ask you about this. The pressure of being 100% in charge of yourself is not easy for most people because everyone thinks the entrepreneurial life is the Lambos and the fun and the parties, but in reality, there's a lot of work and stuff. So is your day very structured with what you do, or how do you set that up to be still fulfilled but not get back into that burnout we talked about before?
I very much feel into how I'm feeling each day. And I found that throughout the week, my mood changes from Monday to Friday. So I schedule my tasks according to that sort of flow state. So for instance, on Mondays, I could not be having a podcast conversation or basically any meetings. I do not want to speak to anyone on Monday. I want to look at my numbers and I want to set my week up. I want to look at my admin. And then my days kind of change. Tuesday and Wednesday, I really feel inspired to do deep work. So I often schedule large blocks of time out to go really deep on my big projects, write a book, create a new funnel, that kind of thing. And then on Thursday and Friday, I feel like being a bit more social. So I feel like I love having conversations like this on a Friday. So that has been a matter of the way that I got to that is that I kept a schedule, like a diary of what I loved doing every day of the week. And then over a period of a few months, it became clear that I cannot set a meeting on I can't have a meeting on a Monday. I do not want to speak to people on Monday. Meetings on Monday feel drudgery. They feel heavy, but meetings
Mm-hmm.
on Friday feel light and fun. And so that's like a reflection tool that I really recommend everyone doing. If you're an entrepreneur and you're in charge of your own time, is mapping out what feels like in flow for you with all of the different tasks that you have to do every week as an entrepreneur.
No, I love that. And there's no rules with it because I'm thinking about how I set my week up. Because in sales, I used to be really busy Monday through Thursday. And Friday, I just chill. I still set my week up that way. Monday,
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm doing a lot of stuff. It's Thursday night here, Friday where you are. So that's kind of funny. We're both in our zone of genius area. But tomorrow, I have one meeting in the morning. Then I'm going to go have coffee with a friend. And I'm taking the rest of the day off because I've done what I need to do for the week. And I think it's just finding that for you. So I know you do courses and you train people on courses and stuff like that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here with fuzzy ideas or dreams or like they're starting to move forward and do things. So if someone came to you and said, hey, I have this dream of doing a course on X, what would be the first thing you would give them insight on, or would you help them find the path, or how does that even work?
So we have a couple of ways of guiding people through that, both in our done for you agency service and also in the course about courses, Freedom Funnels. But let me run through a few ideas so that people can start thinking about it, because I'm sure there's a bunch of people that are going, I kind of like the idea of this whole course creation life. So the first thing that you want to do is identify your genius zone. There's a few ways of doing that. We all kind of know what we're sort of good at. If you're not entirely sure what it could be, I do recommend going out and asking your beloved people you're in a network what they would come to you for advice on. So what would they pick your brain on? What do they think that you're an expert in? So that's step one, is figuring out what your genius zone. Step two is trying to identify, is there an audience that would buy that, and do they have the
Mm-hmm.
capacity to buy? So for instance, when you're looking at I see a lot of people going, one of my best friends, she wants to help people who are addicted to drugs because she's a
Mm-hmm.
nutritionist. She has a protocol. Well, that's great. But a lot of the times those people don't have the capacity to buy. So there's a bit of it's a tricky situation there. So figuring out if there is an audience that have a capacity to buy. And then it's really just a matter of making a unique methodology. So this is something that you want to do to make sure that your course can't be compared or confused with your competitors. It's a way so that when someone gets to your sales page, they're going, oh my God, this is exactly the course that I'm looking for. This has everything that I need. And there's a few ways of going about that. You can either validate your course idea with your immediate network. And this is something that I teach often, which is go out and ask people, what would they want in this course?
Yeah.
Survey them, send them ideas. We're going to put module A, B, and C. Do you want all that? Are you missing something else? And you might be surprised. I often am when I'm creating a new course is that as experts, we don't realize how much knowledge we actually have on a topic. And a lot of it is assumed knowledge. So a lot of experts that I see when they sit down to create a course, they start teaching the course at module C and they teach module C, D, and E. But they don't realize that we actually need module A and B to get started. So the way that you figure this out is simply by asking your audience what they need or running people through a test program or an MVP, which is something that I teach inside of my course. So I do want to share just another little tidbit on Genius Zones, which is a great example of how to create a really unique course that is really going to speak to your ideal audience. And this is a way to get a couple of your ideas and merge them into one particular course. So we heard already that I've monetized all of my passions. So a way to do this is one of my students, Malay. So Malay was really passionate about hair and makeup. She did hair and makeup and beauty in her day job. That's what her day job was. On the weekends, she was passionate about rodeo riding. So she would go to the competition rodeos and watch the people compete on their horses. So she created a course that teaches competitive rodeo riders how to match their hair, makeup, and outfit colors to their horse, which I just think is the most genius combination of all of the skills that she has been given. So something to keep in mind if you're trying to figure out what would be unique about your course idea.
What would that niche you? That puts you in a position where you're different than someone else. If there's a bunch of makeup artists, but if you do it like your friend does to match the horse and do it for this specific thing that she loves, now that whole circle's going to want to be, well, she's an expert for me. It's not just another makeup girl. So I love that, or guy, whatever, whoever wants to, I don't care. But I love that fact because I think so many times people get an idea. And you said something I want people to remember and catch this. You said a lot of times we start at C, D, E, or F, and they need A. My wife said this to me once, and I'm like, oh, what's simple to you is not simple to them. That's why they're asking for help. And I'm like, oh, because it's in my mind, this stuff is just natural for me. So I just automatically was doing it. So now I've had to reverse engineer and do it. And then the other thing you said that was brilliant is ask them. Because guess what? If they say, this is what I would pay for, there's your course. If you want to do something that no one will pay for, you can't monetize, that's a hobby. Go do that. You're just not going to have a business. So I loved how you just wove that in there because I think so many times people try to assume too much or do something and push their product or service instead of just find out what the audience wants. What do they need? How can I help you get there? Because then you can go and do whatever you want on the side because you've already funded it. So no, I love that. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and that's why it's
So
called a genius zone, because to us, it's just the things that we know, but for everyone else, it's genius.
yeah. So I have a couple other questions because this is a pattern, and I told you I see in patterns. That's kind of my thing. Most entrepreneurs I know have gone through certain things, and you said one thing, so I already know. Extreme trauma, almost having a nervous breakdown in the kit. That's extreme trauma. You qualify there. You qualify when you're an entrepreneur, but a lot of them are ADHD. A lot of them have dyslexia, and a lot of them find their worth and value from performance. Do you hit like you hit one? Do you hit any of the other three, or is it just the one?
I don't have ADHD or dyslexia, but my upbringing was that if I brought home an A, I would get love from my parents. That is an absolute fact in my family. So if you're and you better believe I got an A for 12 years straight in school. I was the top of absolutely every sporting club, every social club, every work thing. I went to every math camp, every English camp. You better believe I was an A++ student. And that's how I know I'm valuable in the world, by getting results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how have you, because I like on the journey, I've talked to tons of people in the beginning, like, and I've won awards, like I'm that guy, I get it. How have you learned to love yourself instead of what you do? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people listening get their value and worth from what they do instead of who they are.
Great question. A lot of my value was tied up to the numbers in my bank account for a long time as an entrepreneur, because obviously we see people in my industry going, oh, I had the $100,000 launch, or oh, I made $10,000 today. So for me, looking at people externally, it was like, am I as good as them because they're making money? And then I would look at my bank account and determine my value based on the number of zeros in my bank account. So obviously that was a very unhealthy way of living. I've since now, through deep therapy. Like, this isn't something that I just was able to wake up and figure out overnight. It was deep therapy, years and years of reflection, a lot of self-love work. So a lot of practical tools such as mirror work, such as EFT, such as journaling, such as reprogramming my inner thoughts with my own voice memos. So a lot of very, very practical daily tools to chip away every single day to slowly reprogram that thought into something more positive.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I think a lot of people don't realize it because they'll hear the word affirmation or they'll hear different things and they think it's really woo. It's really science because if you keep saying stuff or hearing things, you program your subconscious. But too many times people talk negatively about themselves or compare to someone else, and you don't know where they're at in their journey. And also online, just because you made 100,000 in 1 month doesn't mean you kept it. You may have had $120,000 worth of expenses. So you
Yeah.
lost 20 and you're talking about 120. It's at the end of the day, it's finding value in what you're doing. The money that you actually keep is what really makes sense. But I love that you've gone through that whole process. I think most entrepreneurs need to. Because
Mhm.
again, we're always the ones that are, well, we're rule breakers anyway, but we're always driven by that um, need for acceptance almost is like that might not be the right word, but like need to prove them wrong. Like I'm in the US, that's kind of a lone store cowboy, lone wolf, prove them wrong. But then I had a friend of mine say this to me once and I thought it was brilliant. He goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to level up, get with a group. You can go so much farther. And I've started getting around groups and masterminds and people that I know, and I've been able to help them see my blind spots and then understand that I'm valuable enough to help them see theirs and it makes you level up. Have you like found it that like are you found like a circle or a group or a mastermind, whatever term you want to use, has that been impactful in your life or
I wish I could say that I have. I feel like I have a mental block around asking for help or getting
Mhm.
mentored. I've sort of gotten to this stage without any, I've never had a mentor ever. I don't know if that's a good thing. In fact, I'm sure it's not a good thing. I just feel like whenever I try to think about who I would hire, I can't find someone that fits the brief of everything that I have. And again, that could be an internal,
Mhm.
issue that I have around getting support and getting help. So no, I am actively looking. If anyone is listening to this and would like to invite me into your mastermind, I would love to come and be a part of it.
Right. I know people. We could talk afterwards if you want. That's fine. And it's not. Here's the thing. I think people think when it comes to masterminds, you come in and they help you, but you're coming in and bringing your gift and helping them. That's the thing about a mastermind because you're finding surrounding yourself with people that are like you. Because as entrepreneurs, it's a lonely road. There's most people don't think like us. Our friends, our families might support us, but they're like, why are you working 12 hours today? Or why are you going to join this trip? Or why are you going to this event instead of like they don't understand our reasoning behind it. So some of my best friends are from around the world because I can relate more so than I don't think it's the be all end all. I just think finding a group of people that can support you and understand you is just very helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
But so we've talked about course creation. We've talked about getting a plan in place. We've talked about mindset and shifting. You said you've done a lot of therapy, a lot of inner work to fix things. What have we missed? Any other thoughts or stuff? I know we kind of hopscotched around because my mind pops around a little bit, but what have we missed that maybe the audience needs to hear about?
I think it's just that your dream for your life doesn't go away just because the journey got hard. So, what I'd like for everyone to take away from this convo is that what I thought was going to be my dream, my fashion label, wasn't my dream. What I then thought was going to be my dream, the celebrity styling, TV presenting, turned out wasn't actually the thing that I was supposed to do. This is the first time in my entire life that I feel like I'm using all of my gifts. I use my engineering degree every single day when I'm looking at algorithms and Facebook ads and crunching numbers and spreadsheets. I use my creativity from my fashion life when I'm creating content and doing photo shoots. So for me, I feel like this is the first time that I'm really utilizing all of my gifts. And at no point in my life did I ever sit around thinking, gee, I just wish that I was a digital nomad working in tropical huts on my laptop. Like I've never once had that thought in my entire life. I would never have picked this life. It literally stumbled upon me. And there was a quote by Steve Jobs. He gave a commencement speech at a university and he said that the reason no, he said he took elective subjects when he was studying his computer science degree or whatever he did, engineering perhaps. And the elective subjects that he took were calligraphy because he was passionate about calligraphy. He wanted to learn about beautiful lettering. And when he released the Mac was the first computer to ever have beautiful fonts. Up until
Mhm.
then, all the previous computers just had basic fonts. So he had, if he hadn't gone and done that elective subject, we wouldn't have beautiful fonts on the Mac. So this is something that I always think about, obviously in hindsight. At the time, I wasn't this aware to realize that the universe was lovingly pushing me towards where I am today. But, these days, my whole life is revolving around helping people, upskilling people, teaching people. And the reward that you get from that, as you talked about already, impacting people is second to none. But again, I would never have chosen it. So if anyone is getting lovingly pushed out of something that they're probably not ready to let go of, I just want you to remember this conversation and trust that there is something better waiting for you on the other side.
No, I love that thoroughly because sometimes we do need that gentle push. Amber, where can people find you? Because I know that there's people that are going to want to connect with you.
Yeah, come and find me on Instagram and let me know that you found me on Joseph's show. I would love to hear what your biggest takeaway was from the show.
Awesome. And what is your Instagram?
It's at the Amber Renae. And if anyone wants to check out the book, this is literally the handbook for online business. So it runs through everything from idea phase right through to automation and ads. I definitely recommend checking out the book for anyone who's got a bit of an idea that this life might be for them.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we'll put this in the show notes as well. Like Amber said, if you're feeling the push, just take the jump. It's worth it because you never know where you'll land, but you don't want to live with a life of regret and wake up 50, 60 years from now never touching your dreams or achieving stuff that maybe you can't even imagine at this point. Amber, thank you again for being on. And for all you listening, thank you again. Like, rate, share this episode with someone that needs it. And until next time, take action. That's the only thing that matters when it comes to building a life you want to wake up to.